when I could have potentially joined a Microsoft. So Infosys was probably 10, 20 crore company at that stage. We were the first company which did anything deep tech by far in the country. So how to bring all those features of a 50 lakh car into 5 lakhs was kind of what we did in Tejas. We were able to get cost points even with low volume to compete with the high volume guys.
When Tata is on the table, what are some changes that the institution brings?
We had no choice but to innovate. Ethics and governance of Tata's is of course great.
And how were your college days?
By the time I graduated from BIT, I'd kind of mastered the art of how to crack exams with minimal effort. So Gateway in 1987 had invented the concept of HDLs. The experience of Tejas in telecom, Vande Bharat in railways. If we use our home market to get our own company's economies of scale, that is the recipe to go global. Then you have enough innovation money to kill everybody else. So I think we have to do this in India in the product play. इसके बिना नहीं होगा.
Generally, companies की valuation होती है उतना सिर्फ एक आपका 900 million, 7,500 crore. What were some stories behind getting that deal?
$100 million is nothing.
What's your understanding कि एक महीने में क्या हो गया कि 77 स्टॉक ऊपर चला गया?
You're going to get 2G से क्या आप कर लोगे? Everybody wants smartphone today. So with this, I think BSNL network's performance will be as good, if not better, than anybody else's. कि जो चीज 100 रुपए में दुनिया में बिकती थी, वो हमें 50 में बेचने लगा. So they actually killed the Western world industry where Nortel went bankrupt.
इस वक्त आपको समझ में आ रहा है कि चाइना एक गेम खेल रहा है?
2010-11, we had the famous 2G scam in India. 2000 onward, when they figured out that telecom was the play to disrupt, that gave the recipe to China कि this is how we play the game. And then strange things happened.
What were you doing when you were 22, sir?
What was I doing when I was 22? Let me think about it. I had just graduated from 22 means 96, 86. So I was just actually in my grad school in the US, actually, 1 year away from finishing my master's, So, yeah.
And how were your college days? Mesra.
BIT Mesra is a very interesting place. It's a phenomenal campus in terms of size. It's some 700 acres of campus, greenery. Ranchi is a very nice weather condition. And the mix of students, at least at that point in time, was academically oriented and generally oriented. I would say generally oriented means people who want to do fun things in life, So I think the undergrad education was as much of a technical education as it was the life education, because Ranchi was a little bit of a wild west in 80s, and the kind of people that were there, and it was a very fun thing. So I think it really hardened you as a person, I would say, in Ranchi. Of my 4 years in Ranchi I was out of 12th, and fantastic place to get hardened in life. Nothing would scare you, nothing would worry you. So that was one big learning from BIT. The second learning was a little bit of a, discovery of your own potential, as one would say. So when I joined the college, it was like one of those, you write all kind of exams. JEE had just started. I think I was the first year when JEE had started or something like that.
It was called some AICT, something.
And then BIT had its own entrance. You write a whole bunch of entrance exams, and then depending on where you get, you go in there, right? So in my case, I couldn't make it to IIT because coincidentally, I reached late for writing the exams, so for some strange reason. So, you reach late, and then, it's all tricky. So I got what I got, and then I said, okay, I went there. But more importantly, what I learned is after first year, I think I was generally okay in studies, but I did put in X amount of effort and I got pretty good results. And I said, okay, if I put a little bit more, I think I can do well. And by the time I graduated from BIT, I'd kind of mastered the art of science of whatever, how to crack exams. So I, with minimal effort, So I was involved in all kinds of things in the college, but at the same time, I did extremely well academically. I was the gold medalist of my batch, and by far, even if I didn't have to write the last year's exam, I would have still done very well. So that was a good thing that if I did choose to, and if I did focus on something, I can do well. So that was kind of a learning out of the BIT experience from an undergraduate point of view.
81?
81 to 85.
81 to 85. उस समय इंजीनियरिंग में क्या पढ़ा रहे थे?
We used to study ECE, Electronics and Communication Engineering. So my batch was the first batch they introduced after 2 years, I think, computer science. And the dilemma was, do you take computer science, do you take ECE? And, those things, it was like, ECE is a safe option. You can always do computer science, but if you do only software, you can't do hardware. It was like those, that kind of a thinking then. So I ended up taking ECE. It was still very traditionally taught. I mean, to be honest, usual communications and all that, but computers and all that stuff had. But we used to have like a computer room where you log into the terminals and all that stuff. Programming was not on your PC or laptop. They hadn't come at that stage.
Right.
They weren't invented, actually, to be honest. And then right after I went to do my master's to NC State, and then I finished my master's there. And there again, it was a similar case where you went there and, firstly, it's a little bit overwhelming initially. You go from India to US and this is mid 80s. Now everybody knows everything. But that time, there's a lot of newness about things, getting settled into a new place, new way of teaching, new evaluation, etc. And then again, there very quickly, one figures out, what was the way to do well academically, and I did that as well. So there again, I did quite well academically, so the whole purpose of cracking that code of doing well academically is that it takes care of one aspect of why I go for education, which is at least to get a good grade and a good degree, whatever. But then if you are very good at cracking that code, you find enough time to do other things in life, which is what I did in my undergrad, which I did in my master's, so that I didn't have to spend a lot of hours just studying. You could spend decent amount of studying and still have enough free time to do other things that one enjoys, So that is what I did at NC State. So there again, it was computer engineering. I did my master's there. And after that, this is around 87. And then I was looking for jobs and like everybody else did. And then I interestingly found one of the companies that I finally ended up working was a startup in Boston in 1987. So they were, when I could have potentially joined a Microsoft or whatever, which was also not very big company. Some of my friends did. And there was this little company out of Boston, probably 20 people company, which eventually became an iconic company called Cadence Design Systems.
Wow.
So, and that startup was done by an Indian person, Prabhu Goel. I don't know if you heard his name or not, but Prabhu was one of the first founders out of East Coast in the US who made it big. So his company was called Gateway Design Automation, and their claim to fame was that the entire semiconductor or all chips and electronics in the world today are designed using something called hardware description languages, HDL. So Gateway in 1987 had invented the concept of HDLs. So before that, electronics was not designed using HDL. It was designed using, you take the schematics of gate and you connect them. So this was the first time where in software you could describe a hardware. And that's why it was a very iconic company, because they basically changed the way electronics and semiconductor industry evolved in the world from then. This is 87. So this was probably one of the most iconic, discoveries. So I actually had an opportunity to work as a startup in there.
And what was your role?
I was an engineer, software engineer or whatever, very, very early stage. I mean, just fresh out of college. And then I ended up developing some of the aspects of the logic simulator that they did. And then that company in 1989 got acquired by Cadence Design Systems for, I think, around $90 million in 1989. And it was a very big hit. It was the largest Indian-founded company on the East Coast of America. And the equivalent largest Indian-founded or Indian co-founded company on the West Coast was Sun Microsystems, where Vinod Khosla was there. So Vinod Khosla had done this stuff on the West Coast and Prabhu had done this stuff on the East Coast. So this is the beginning of the tech thing. And I was fortunate enough to join that company when it was less than 20 people. I saw the whole industry, semiconductor industry, shape up. And then that gateway became Cadence, and then they decided to set up an operation in India. And this is again very interesting because again, 1989, there's no high tech in India. IT services, Infosys was probably 10, 20 crore company at that stage. So in India, the entire tech sector, there was Texas Instruments had just about set up an operation in Bangalore in 1988. And Cadence decided to set up a thing in Noida in 1988.
And why Noida, not in Bangalore?
Because Prabhu was from Delhi area, so he said, okay, we'll set it up there. And I then chose to say, you know what, I'll come back to India. I came back to Noida in 1988 with Gateway, then which became Cadence. And we were the first company which did anything deep tech by far.
In the country?
In the country. And why I say that, because that time it was called Electronic Design Automation, EDA Industry, which is the software that is used for making all the chips. So every chip in the world today, every single chip, anything in electronics is designed either using Cadence or Synopsys. These are the two EDA companies. In fact, today if you see the market cap of each of these companies, there are around $80 billion. And Synopsys also has a story in my life, because I was the managing director of Synopsys.
For 3 years.
Yeah. So essentially, in Delhi, so Cadence ended up actually seeding the entire semiconductor ecosystem in the country. And before that, there was a company called Semiconductor Complex Limited, but they were doing the fabs.
This was in Mohali. पूरी facility चल गई थी.
Yes.
And कहते हैं कि अगर वो facility नहीं चलती तो India would have been
way ahead.
Way ahead.
So Cadence came to India. So we then started to, we worked with IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, and we helped put together, curriculums for electronic design automation, for teaching Verilog, VHDL, chip design in academics, because we had to hire people. So we had to do that. And I was just a young engineer and, probably the first or second employee in India, right? So it was good to kind of set up a company, which was kind of a startup in Delhi or Noida, where you hire teams, you build talent, you build capabilities, you create, awareness. And of course, we used to export. It was a wholly owned subsidiary of Cadence. So we used to export software, which is whatever work we did in India used to be exported, and the export had to be in some kind of a physical form. So we could not just...
Because there was no internet.
Internet was not there. So there used to be all these modems you had to transfer this at 9.6 kbps. You could turn off a modem in the night, and all night the thingalog in the line will drop, so your software will not go out. So physically, the software export used to happen on some kind of a floppy disk. They didn't even have hard disk,
Yes.
So that's how we started. But the good part was I really got a ringside view of how the Indian high-tech industry evolved. And I spent the first... from 87 to 2000, first 13 years of my career, I spent in electronic design automation industry. First with Cadence, and then I went back to US to the Bay Area in 95, was with Synopsys for 2 years there, and then came back to India, set up Synopsys in Bangalore, and then 2000 I left. So first 13 years I did, and we did products out of Cadence in 87.
And what were...
For the world.
Okay.
Of course, they were sold by Cadence, but these were all the Verilog simulation, the models, and so many other things. So my DNA and my background was always doing products, doing deep technology, doing very complex things. And EDA software possibly is the most complex software that gets written in the world of any kind, because using that software, you literally design a chip with 100 million transistors, which somehow just magically works, right? And like synthesis, which is what Synopsys' claim to fame was, you write a description in a Verilog or VHDL, and magically you get gates which will just somehow work, right? And the whole semiconductor and electronics industry, the foundation for that entire industry is Cadence and Synopsys. And I had the opportunity to work in the early days in that industry for 13 years, and really did deep tech products from India, of course, for global multinational companies, set up their India center, build up teams, build up capabilities, the whole processes, systems, and all that. And then in 2000, I, said that, we've been building products for, foreign companies and world. So what is clear is that we can build world-class things from India. That I had no doubt, because, the talent we could hire here is outstanding. Once you frame the problem correctly, we could build whatever, however complex things may be. So why not do this for yourself, right? So that's how Tejas was born. And the interesting thing about Tejas was that most of the time you do a startup with a very clear idea of products, what you're going to do, how you're going to solve, and who's your target market, all that usual stuff, right? Tejas was a very interesting story, because when we started Tejas, I was in Synopsys. I was the managing director in Bangalore. And my 13 years of my life were in EDA industry. So I knew a lot about chip industries and EDA software, etc. I had no clue to telecom equipment, which is building systems. I don't have, telecom is a completely domain, wireline, wireless, optical, 2G, 3G. I had no clue to that. And Arnab, my co-founder, was also with me in Tejas and also in Cadence before with me. So we worked together since 88, in those two companies. So we really knew how to build teams, how to build products of whatever kind. And then we were put together through Desh Deshpande, whom I spoke to you about. He was, one of the big earlier guy who really created a company called Sycamore Networks. And before that, he had created a company called Cascade Communications. So Cascade essentially was one level before the internet, in terms of frame relays and high-speed networking. And Cascade, I think in the mid-90s, was acquired by Lucent for about $4 billion. And Desh was the founder of Cascade. So after selling Cascade to Lucent
For $4 billion.
$4 billion in the mid-90s, then he started Sycamore Networks in 99. And this is when the internet revolution started in fiber optic networking. So Sycamore was a pioneer in optical fiber networking. And in 2000, Sycamore went public. At that point in time, it had the record for the single day rise on NASDAQ after listing. So the stock listed, and then at the end of the day, it was valued at $40 billion.
And it was listed at what?
It was listed at some $40 and it closed at $400, something like that, So it was a $40 billion company in 2000, Sycamore Networks. It was the peak of the internet thing because they were building the internet with their equipment. And Desh was the founder of Sycamore Networks after Cascade. So we got in touch with Desh through some common acquaintances, and Desh wanted to do something in India. So me, Arnab, Desh, and then Kumar Shivrajan, who's our CTO and also co-founder. He was a professor at ISC Bangalore, again, a very talented individual, and he had written a book on optical networking. So four of us got together, Desh, me, Arnab, and Kumar, and we said, let's start a telecom company, product company out of India. So Kumar knew networks, the theoretical knowledge of all of that. Arnab and I knew how to build, complex software products. Desh had the industry vision. He was a serial entrepreneur, hugely successful. I think in 2000, when we met him for the first time, he was the richest Indian in the world with a network of more than $10 billion because he owned about 25% of Sycamore and all that. And we said, okay, let's start a product company in India. And that's how Tejas was born. And we said, we'll figure out what products we'll do. And and why telecom? Because telecom made a lot of sense because in 2000, the tele density in India, which is the number of phones per 100 people, was 1.2 or 1.1. And then mobile telephony had just about started. It was like probably India would have had 10,000 or 100,000 mobile phones at that stage. That's it. So we said, well, telecom is going to grow. So if you build products, India itself will need a lot of products. And the beauty about telecom industry is it's a very global industry. So every country in the world needs networks. So if you build products for telecom, it'll be a good thing to do because it's a global market and it's a standards-based industry. So standard-based means, by definition in networking, if you have to talk from a person in country A to a person in country B, everything has to be standardized. Otherwise, you cannot talk. So what standards also do, it levels the playing field. So it's not, you don't have to live in the US or Japan or Europe because to develop that, because
everybody will speak this
language the same way. So it kind of was a good play to start. So we said, let's start a telecom equipment company out of India. And product was our DNA because that's what we knew how to build. And then Desh came with this. And then we said, okay, let's start a company. So this is how we started. So no product idea, that just three, hopefully capable people. That's what Desh thought. And Desh said, I'll fund. So between Desh and Sycamore, they decided that we'll put $2.5 million each. So we raised $5 million on day zero of the company. So then the question is, okay,
अब क्या बनाना है?
क्या बनाना है वो बाद में समझेंगे, but valuation क्या रखना है? That's the first thing. Everybody worried about valuation, right? So, and this is before startups were fashionable. There was no VC industry. So in all of these things, you keep things simple. We said, well, 50-50 doesn't sound bad. So for $5 million, we take 50%. And for $5 million, we take 50%. No arguments, how can you...
50% among three of you?
50% among three of us. And then and employees, we said, we'll keep it, three of us and employees, we keep 50, and 50 is for the investors. $2.5 million. So very simple structure. So got the money, got the vision कि telecom में कुछ करेंगे, क्या करेंगे, we'll figure it out. We have good team services. Jo bhi karenge, hopefully we'll do it. And then we said, let's start a company. And there we go. And we started Tejas.
So Tejas का नाम कैसे आया?
So Tejas itself, the name was very interesting. So we said, well, we were very particular. We want to do company out of India and build a product company from India for the world. So we said, well, we had to have some Indianness to it, So we said, we cleared that we'll focus initially on optical networking because that was the hottest field in that time, high-speed data networking and broadband and all that. So optical network is all about light. So what you do in optical networking is unlike in a normal telephone line or landline, your signal goes on the copper, and you do the modulation, demodulation on the electricity signal. But in the case of optical networking, what happens is you take a beam of light,
which travels
and goes through that fiber optic small cable. But each beam of light, we split it into different wavelengths. So think of it as every color. So every color of light becomes a carrier for us, and we do the modulation, demodulation on that. So if you have 80 colors or 160 colors of light, which is basically different frequencies, each of them becomes carrier, and then each of them we can do
different modulation.
So we can literally carry terabits or hundreds of terabits of capacity because of the optical networking. That's the beauty. So optical networking means about light. So light, we said, Tejas is brilliance of light in Sanskrit.
Okay.
So we said we should have a Indian name, so we named Tejas. Because it was brilliance of light, and if you see the logo of the company, it's like a rangoli, but it's also, think of it as a network with the dots, which are the knobs, hubs. And just to put again things in perspective, because Tejas has now become a very famous name in the country, we set up Tejas in 2000, and in 2004, the Tejas aircraft, the indigenous aircraft, was named Tejas in 2004. And in 2011, I think one of the high-speed trains was also named as
Tejas, yes.
So people think we named them, but the fact is we were the first Tejas.
That makes sense.
So that's how it was. So that's how the name got set up. That's how the company got set up in Bangalore. And then three of us...
and why was Bangalore? And how was Bangalore?
I was in Bangalore already. So I moved to Bangalore with Synopsys. So we were in Bangalore. And then, of course, over the first 3 months, we also had an opportunity to talk to a lot of customers in India, Airtel, Jio and all that, because the network was just about, it was not Jio, it was Reliance then. And all these networks were just coming up. As I said, the tele density was 1%. So we were in the right market at the right time. So the customers were learning with us and we were learning with the customers. So we could figure out what products existed in the world. So the way technology worked in those days, and also unfortunately works in a significant way today, is that a lot of high-tech products are invented in US or Europe, or Japan for that matter, or Korea now, right? Or China now. And they develop the products literally for
their own
countries and their own markets. And that technology then brought into countries like India, and we kind of retrofit our applications around what that is there, right? So in conceptually, that's the way. So the telecom networks, they had built networks in a certain way that users was paying $100 per month for ARPU, whereas in India, the cost points were different. So the way the networks had to be built, the way the networks had to be architected, the kind of products you needed were different than what worked in the US, except that the technology had to be same or similar. Because, so think about it this way, if you want to buy a $50,000 car today, right? It has all the bells and whistles into it. So it's got all the electronics, all the different safety systems, and all the lights are LEDs and everything, etc., automatic transmission. But you only want to pay 5 lakhs for it. So how to bring all those features of a 50 lakh car into 5 lakhs was kind of what we did in Tejas in the initial years in terms of building our own first set of products. So there were similar products in the US, but they were built in terms of scale, size, capacity, and price for a completely different market. And retrofitting them in India was, not the right thing to do. So and as a startup, by the way, it's a telecom industry is a big boys play. It's not a startup's play. So you had Ericsson, Nokia, Nortel, and these guys had end-to-end product. They've invested. These are all 50-year-old companies. They've invested hundreds of billions of dollars in that, right? So as a startup company, how do you create a new product where at least for that particular product category or that niche is better than someone else? Because a customer will still not buy your product unless you're fundamentally giving them better value in terms of either technology, money, cost point, price performance, feature set, support, services, whatever, right? Because, in India in 99, 2000, the import on electronics and telecom was zero duty. So there was so you could import anything from anywhere in the world. So there was no barrier to entry.
They would definitely go with.
So they would go with the foreign established proven guys versus a young startup who has never done products in India, was not known for products. So why would I risk my network into that? So the challenge was to build something unique enough, value enough, and also in the hardware industry, which is probably a tough play, and that's why India has still not got into it, and then hopefully getting into it in the next 5-10 years, is that it's the economies of scale play. So if you build, let's say, a phone like this, let's say you build a phone which is as good as the iPhone, feature to feature, like to like, exactly the same. And then you go and buy the components from the same suppliers, exactly. Your bill of material cost will be, say, $5,000. Because you're buying
Single
hundreds, tens, 25, or maybe 100,000, maybe 10,000.
No economy of scale.
Versus someone else, Apple buys this for $200, $300, right? And your bill of material is 5,000. So the customer, even if he's willing to buy, he says, well, I am willing to buy, but give me a $300. Yaar, aapka problem hai agar aapka 5,000 hai, but it's not my problem.
Right.
So it's a chicken and egg thing. But if you don't sell enough of the products, how would you ever get to that price? So you can't get into economies of scale because you don't get volumes. And you don't get volumes because it's a chicken and egg problem. So how do you break the loop, right? So very difficult. It's not easy. It's still the thing to be done. But for whatever it's worth, in Tejas, we said, well, how do we break this loop? So we said, let's bring in some technological play here, because you cannot do the normal thing. So what we decided to do, the chips that we use in the Tejas equipment, and this is really where some lateral thinking and completely different industry. So we had no knowledge of how telecom products build. So I would say we had no baggage of knowledge or biases. We came from EDA industry where we design chips, we design software, we design things. So we said, you know what? Why should I use this custom chips which are provided by Qualcomm, Broadcom, and all of these kind of companies?
I'll make my own
chip, which is called ASIC. But building an ASIC is very expensive, because ASIC is, again, you design the chip, but then you have to go to the foundry, which is TSMC, and then again the same thing starts. If you build 10, and then the NRE cost of the ASIC is very high. So there's a third option, which is called FPGAs, which is programmable silicon devices, which is you get the chip, but think of it, it's like a chip with lots of gates, which can program to do anything, but has no program in it. So if you take the logic of whatever you're trying to do,
you can apply it
on FPGA. So FPGA plus logic equals to the end chip. Now, that logic is software written in Verilog and VHDL. We were the masters of Verilog in the world. We said, you know what? Why don't we develop our own chip? But instead of developing a chip, we print that chip onto the FPGA. Now, FPGAs are mass market devices, because FPGAs get used since it's a blank piece of silicon. Your camera will use FPGA, your controllers will use FPGAs, car will use FPGA, electronics will use FPGA. So if ASIC sells 100, so suppose if Nortel had made a ASIC and they would have buy, say, 1 lakh ASICs for their own captive, FPGA from Xilinx or Altera, they would be selling in 100 millions. The same chip, because everybody buys it for any purpose. So by buying Xilinx, I'm getting his 100 million volume prices, but by even buying the 10. And by printing the logic, which I could do because our R&D cost in India are 1/4 or 1/5 of what it was in the US. So we could afford, and we had the capability, and then we had a financial affordability to build our own chip, which a startup in the US would never be able to do. He had no choice but to buy a Broadcom, Qualcomm, just because he doesn't have the wherewithal to do it. So by building our own logic, using FPGAs, which are mass market devices, we were able to get cost points, even with low volume, to compete with the high volume guys. That was one benefit. The second benefit, which was a bigger benefit, is we fundamentally converted a hardware problem to a software problem. And software is India's strength. Manufacturing, all that. So literally for us, so in Tejas, our DNA, and if you see a lot of the company's description, we say we are a software-defined hardware. It basically means our hardware platform is only the carrier. The same box can do 2G. आपके network में वहीं पे लगा हुआ कि we can give you a new version of software. It will start doing 3G.
Okay.
And then with a new version, it will do 4G. So it can completely transform the hardware from 2G to 3G to 4G. Now, this is phenomenal. Nobody in the world does it. So this is how innovation came because we had no choice but to innovate. So by completely converting a telecom hardware problem to a software problem, where hardware is still the carrier, and we put big effort. Then we worked closely with people like Xilinx and Altera and said, we are the guys who are innovating with you, because nobody was using their chips in this way. And they could now build a big industry because of us. So we got access to their best people, even being a small startup, and plus our prior background in the semiconductor industry. We had all the relationship with all the CXOs of all of these companies in the Silicon Valley. So small company in Bangalore could get the attention of the top guys there. We could tell them that these are the new things we should put in your next version of the chip, which suited us, so that what we designed automatically came from them. We used their volume economics to get our cost down. We could have time to market advantage, because with a custom silicon, it will take 18 months for you to build a chip. Then it will take another 6 months to build the board and come out. So typical product development cycles in telecom industries are 2 to 2.5 years. We cut them down to 9 to 12 months. So when a new standard came out, for example, Ethernet over SDH, which was a technology in 2003, we literally, the day IEEE or ITU published the standard, within a week we had a product shipping out, which nobody in the world has. So this is how innovation started. This is how we got our first thing. And then we built one box, then we did the second and third. And of course, this is how the thing. But I'm just giving you how we maxed out on the technology from doing things in a very disruptive way in an established industry. Because the problem in product game, there are two kind of products in the world. There's established product categories. Your mobile phone is established. Your camera is established. Your electronics of a TV established. So for a new company to come and dislodge the incumbents in established product industry is almost impossible. Impossible. You have to move the mountain to do this. So I can tell with a lot of pride that from the 2000 vintage startups in telecom in the world, we are probably the only guys who are still alive, who survived and we're still alive. The only other example of a company who came up, and that is the second recipe for how do you compete against disruptive products, is if government backs you to the hilt. So Huawei, by the way, in 1999 also started. For 10, 11 years, they were struggling. Around 2000, China decided that if they wanted to be a developed economy and get out of this manufacturing low-end thing, they have to start developing their own products. They read the storyline the same way as us. Telecom is a big play. China also had a tele-density of 1 to 2% in 2000. And they said, if we build large economies of scale using Chinese market for Huawei, then not only we get economies of scale, we will go to the world. And then China was also low cost, thing. He said, if we can make our products low cost and work in China, we will go and disrupt the market. So government literally from the time Huawei was formed in 1999 till recently, probably have given them more than a couple of $100 billion of subsidies, support, R&D dollars. And 2000 onward, when they figured out that telecom was the play to disrupt, especially after the internet bubble happened, they maxed out, they doubled down. And they said, let's make Huawei as the national champion of technology in China. So the first deep tech company out of China was Huawei, not Alibaba, not none of these internet companies. And that gave the recipe to China कि this is how we play the game. Unfortunately,
India में वैसा नहीं
हुआ. So we had to do the normal way. हमने product बनाया. तो सबसे पहले तो बोले, we went to some customers. तो बोला कि we have developed this product indigenously. तो बोले किसकी टेक्नोलॉजी है? बोले नहीं ये हमारी टेक्नोलॉजी है. नहीं वो तो सब बोलते हैं. आपका जॉइंट वेंचर किसके साथ है? TOT आप ट्रांसफर ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी आपने किस फॉरेन कंपनी? बिकॉज द कॉन्सेप्ट वाज एंड इट वाज अ वेरी बिग डील. ओ I got a joint venture with this American Tata, Lucent, Ericsson, whatever, Maruti, Suzuki. So the technology came from foreign. Indian guy basically absorbed करके manufacture कर दिया. We said नहीं हमारी है. So they didn't even believe. And youngsters, I was probably about 32 or 33 at that stage. So, youngsters go and say, I've developed this technology which is better than the world. I mean, we had this big colonial foreign mindset at that stage. So people even didn't build. But then eventually, of course, they realized and then they appreciated. But you never got initial stages of the support of government, which, by the way, now, the last 3, 4, 5 years, and now in particular, we see the manifestos of all the government, all the different political parties. Everybody is saying India has to become a product nation. India has to develop deep technology. Unless we build our own products, unless we own our IPR, just by manufacturing, we cannot get anywhere. We'll be stuck in a middle income group. So we are kind of the pioneers in that stage, and we did all of that. And then as a result of that, over the last 23 years or 24 years, I had no choice but to to work with the government and push them hard. And I probably was instrumental in almost all the electronics, semiconductors, high-tech policies that have come in the country, because we were the practitioners. We found out the real issues. We could tell the government precisely why they needed to do something different. The preference to make in India policy came that if there's an Indian product, we should buy that. The PLI came because we said there's a fundamental handicap of manufacturing in India, and you need to subsidize that handicap at the initial stages by production subsidy. There is to be the R&D subsidies needed. So there's a design-linked incentive policy for semiconductors and others. So all of these are all outcomes of the learning that we in Tejas went through. And so we built the products initially, and then we scaled the company. And then venture capital didn't exist in 2000. There was probably 5 entities in India who did any kind of early stage investing.
This was ICICI, Helion.
It was ILNFS Venture Corporation, Intel Capital, SIDBI or TIDBI, one of those guys was there, 3, maybe 1 or 2 more, but this is it. So there are 3 or 4 people who did.
उस वक्त आपका क्या scale था?
So we raised $5 million initially at 10 from Sycamore and Dish. Then we did Series A in 2001, one and a half year after. And we got Intel Capital and ILNFS.
India,
Intel Capital India and ILNFS India as venture capital firms to put in another $10 million in the company. So we raised Series A, 5 million to 10 million. Then we did Series B, which was in 2003 or 4. That time, then we went abroad, and then we got money from a very reputed firm called Battery Ventures in Boston. So they put in, I think, about $10 or $15 million. Then we did Series D in 2005, where we got Mayfield. We were the first investment of Naveen. Yeah, Naveen was on our board for many, many, many years. And Naveen is a good friend. So Mayfield came in Tejas in 2005-06. Then 2007, before, at that point in time, we were planning an IPO, Goldman Sachs came in. So we basically had the best investors, but we raised money, and we never did a down round in the history of the company, despite all the ups and downs. So we built up the company, we built up the product, we built up the teams, we found a way to raise money. Then we ended up creating ecosystem in all aspects. So for example, today in India, this electronic manufacturing services, EMS, is a well-established ecosystem. Didn't even exist. When we had to manufacture products, we decided that we want to be an asset-light model. Asset-light.
Kaise?
We didn't want to have factories. We said we want to focus on R&D, we want to focus on this. And we'll outsource the manufacturing, contract manufacturing. But there was no contract manufacturers in India at that stage. So we used to manufacture, because of the complexity of the products, initially in Singapore, then in Malaysia and Thailand. And then only in 2003, there was the first contract manufacturing happened in India in the form of Flextronics. They bought the Motorola's factory in Electronic City. So we were the first anchor customers for Flextronics in India in 2003, because we said we want to do contract manufacturing. We understand that play. So we actually seeded the contract manufacturing industry in India in 2003. And then, of course, we used all the different, from Sanmina to Flextronics to different kind of contract manufacturers. So we continue to do that. So because we can go to infinite scale without actually investing into the CapEx. So we ended up, as Tejas, we literally saw the advent and emergence of the venture capital industry, and we lived through that and found a way to raise money. We basically ended up being the anchor tenant for the EMS industry and really helped with the policies and the economics of that industry. Then we started to do, products from India, which was never done in the hardware and systems category. All technology-driven, innovation-driven. We filed patents, we got awards from the world, all that stuff. And then we said, and then we were doing very well. So our revenues, I think from Tejas, when we started, this was still 2000, we talk about exponential growth. So we did 5 crores of revenues in year 1. Whatever product we made, we could sell it.
And you were selling?
That one little stuff that we did. Next year, we did 11 crores.
Same product
plus something add. Then we continued to increase. Then we did, so our year-wise revenues from inception initially was 5 crores. Then we went 11 crores, then 28 crores. Then I think it was 45 crores, then 128 crores, then 234 crores. This was our first 6 years of revenues. And we are all set to go IPO because, from 0 to 250 crores in 6 years, literally doubling, tripling every year. I mean, this is real company. This is hardware, software, manufacturing products. Of course, India started to rise in telecom. Tele-density go from 1% to 5% to 10%. So we are riding all that wave. And then in 2007, we were almost getting ready to file our IPO with RHP and NDRHP, everything ready. And then strange things happened. So there was a Lehman Brothers financial crisis, 2008. So everything came on a pause mode. So I said, okay, no problems. And one good thing which we did, good lesson for entrepreneurs, is raise money when you don't need money, So when we are about to file DRHP, Goldman Sachs came to us and said, you know what, we were going to do IPO. We want to put money in your company. We said, we don't need money. He said, no. Take $25 million, set it at IPO price. Whatever the IPO price, you give me, set my variable to that price.
And why was Goldman Sachs was so...
Because we are the hottest. I mean, this was, by the way, which company you would not want in 5, 10, 28, 45, 128, 234 going in the world?
I just wish I was there.
Great industry. So he said, we want to invest, This is sure. So we took that money. But then Goldman Sachs, this crisis happened. So he said, okay, we'll wait it out 1 or 2 years. And then what happened is, by that time, we were exporting about 40% of our products internationally. So India, we were selling directly, but we found out that selling internationally was very tough because every country, telecom and auto, for example, are two industries where you have to have a very strong in-country presence before even you sell your first product.
In order to give
service, report, because our equipment goes all across the country. So अगर जैसे एक network है तो आपका base station तो पूरी country में लगे रहेंगे. तो आपका support infrastructure चाहिए, services चाहिए, after sales चाहिए, वो सब चाहिए. तो वो जब तक आप invest नहीं करेंगे तो how can you even get the first order? You can't just sell the bikes and then say
okay, बस अब आप करवा लेना ठीक है.
So, and that cost a lot of money. And we had just, but till 2007, we had just raised about $100 million, So that's not a lot of money because we created all these products, all this marketing, sales, whatever, right? And growth, inventories. So we didn't have the wherewithal to export, but our products were so good that Nortel Networks, which was the world's #1 company, in the telecom world, they found merit in what we are doing in 2004-05. So they said, you know what, this box that you have is absolutely world-class. We'd like to OEM from you. So we are the OEM. So we used to put a Nortel label on that box, and then they used to sell it
on their name
around the world to 75 countries.
क्योंकि उनके पास सारा
infrastructure था, तो हमारे को करीब 40% sales उनके through आ जाती थी. So just through one sales channel, I was able to crack international markets, and I got 3 benefits out of doing that. Benefit number 1, international business. Now, international prices are 1.5 times India prices because India में तो हर चीज सबसे सस्ती बिकती. They want the latest technology, greatest quality and the lowest cost. But उस प्राइस पे अगर हम पैसे बना सकते थे तो इंटरनेशनल में तो वो वही चीज 1.5 गुनी पे बिक रही थी.
So dollar revenue, rupee.
Dollar revenue. So Tejas was the first company built, first high-tech company. Rupee revenue, rupee revenue and rupee.
Dollar revenue, rupee cost.
Rupee revenue, rupee cost in the first 7 years because we are selling in India.
Right.
In the tech sector. Everybody was dollar revenue. So we solved the hard problem.
First.
Then we said, okay, now let's export. And it was all more like cream on the top. So Nortel was doing around 40% of our revenues. We were doing around 150 crores with Nortel per year that time. And they were going gangbusters.
And आप यहाँ पर product क्या था अपना?
Same, this was basically optical transmission product.
ठीक है.
Which is basically used to combine Ethernet and circuits into the same box. अगर आपको याद होगा पहले इंडिया में आपको अगर लीज लाइन लेनी थी so you had to take in the multiples of 128 64 kbps.
मुझे नहीं पता लेकिन
so there is this 64 kbps, 128 kbps, 256 kbps, 1 mbps, 2 mbps. So you could take bandwidths in that. And why that was because each phone call is 9.6 kbps. So all you were doing when you were buying bandwidth from a BSNL or VSNL or Bharti in the early days, you were buying 20 numbers of phone lines dedicated to you for carrying your data. And they were all just pieced together. So उसमें क्या था कि you could only sell bandwidth in the units of 64 kbps. So there was a new standard in the world which came called Ethernet over, that technology called SDH, which is the optical networking technology. So Ethernet over SDH was a new standard. You can sell bandwidth in Mbps, 1 Mbps, 2 Mbps, 100 Mbps, 4, and that would map into N by 64 kbps here.
Got it. So ताकि infrastructure change नहीं करना पड़े.
तो वो हमने वो बॉक्स बनाया कि नीचे आपका सब वो फोन का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है पर ऊपर आप बैंडविड्थ दे सकते हो. So as a result, the call centers were coming up in India big time.
Yes.
And they needed bandwidth in 10 Mbps, 100 Mbps. तो पहले उनके ऑप्शन था कि either आप 2 Mbps खरीदिए, 34 खरीदिए या 120 or 256 Mbps खरीदिए, which is very expensive.
Right.
Now they could get it in granularity of 1 Mbps. So that was a hit product, So that was our Ethernet over SDS products. And that is what went. And then, of course, we expanded it to WDM, which is the wavelength division multiplexing, which is building backbone networks and all of those things which we continue to do. So, but coming back to this.
तीन चीज बता रहे थे आप.
So one was that Nortel, we got the benefit of international sales. Second, we also learned and the quality and what is the global standard of what other countries need for the same box. Because Nortel is to integrate all of that and come to us. So without actually going to 100 countries and understanding the customer requirement or knowledge मेरे पास आ गया, including how to build. Nortel had a 50-year knowledge of how to build products which are manufacturable, which will work in the field for 10 years. Our quality requirements in our industry is 99.9999%, 5 nines, which means 15 minutes per year of continuous operation, 27 by 24, 365 days a year. You get 15 minutes per year to do switch off their system and do something with it. उस रिलायबिलिटी का प्रोडक्ट बनाना वो हमने उनसे सीखा, ग्लोबल रिक्वायरमेंट सीखी, प्लस हमें मार्केट मिल गया, एक्सेस मिल गया. एंड द थर्ड बेनिफिट ऑफ नॉटेल वाज द ब्रांड्स. पीपल स्टार्टेड टू सी ओ तेजस का ये प्रोडक्ट नॉटेल के पास जा रहा है. सो देन दे स्टार्टेड टू सी कि वी शुड टॉक टू द OEMs itself, right?
ऐसे is it open कि आप जैसे अगर एक कंपनी है उनका OEM कौन है? Is it open?
Kind of people come to know, So people come to know. So at least the customers in India came to know. So India में हमारी reputation बढ़ गई.
और सर ये because it's an amazing leverage that you are talking about. ये आपने उनको कन्विंस कैसे करा था? उनकी नजर आप पे कैसे पड़ी?
उनकी नजर ऐसे पड़ी कि उस समय रिलायंस का नेटवर्क बन रहा था.
अच्छा.
रिलायंस फर्स्ट नेटवर्क एंड रिलायंस नीडेड दैट बॉक्स एंड नॉटेल ढूंढ रहा था कि वो बॉक्स. देन दे सॉ कि हमारे पास है, तो उन्होंने कहा कि हमको ये चाहिए है क्योंकि हमने इंडिया रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से बनाया था. तो देन दे टुक एंड दे गिव आवर बॉक्स एज द फर्स्ट कस्टमर वाज रिलायंस इन्फोकॉम, द ओरिजिनल रिलायंस.
आपको नहीं पता था कि रिलायंस को ये चाहिए?
हमें नहीं पता. एंड एवरी base station of Reliance in those days used to have a Tejas box branded as Nortel. And that helped us next time because when Reliance Jio was formed,
उन्होंने आप ही को contact करा.
That's what so coming back to this, so this is how it happened. So we learned a lot from that relationship. But coming back to 2007-8, the problem happened was when the company was ready to, पहले तो Lehman Brothers का problem.
So आप यहाँ पर ये वाली problem बता रहे थे, raise money where you don't need it.
हाँ सर, Goldman Sachs put money. And we didn't worry about thing. We said, okay, IPO की जो भी प्राइस होगी आपको मिल जाएगा. But Lehman Brothers के कारण IPO 1-2 साल अटक गया. Then in 2009-10, Nortel, the great company, went for Chapter 11. Because the whole telecom bust had happened, internet economy boom bust. उसके साथ many companies in the world, Nortel went bankrupt, Lucent खत्म हो गई, Alcatel खत्म हो गई.
इनका कारण क्या था?
They had all overpriced cost structure and Huawei and the Chinese disrupted the market की जो चीज़ 100 रुपये में दुनिया बेचती थी Huawei 50 में बेचने लगा. तो इनका कॉस्ट स्ट्रक्चर था कि हम इतनी सारी R&D करके 100 पे बेचेंगे. पहले 50 में उन्होंने कहा कि Huawei की क्वालिटी खराब है, सस्ता वगैरह वगैरह. बट एज टाइम वेंट बाय everybody moved and then Huawei went up on the quality and Huawei could do this. उनको गवर्नमेंट की बैंक रोल हो रही थी and government made a strategy कि सबको मार डालो पहले. So they actually killed the Western world industry where Nortel went bankrupt, Lucent went away, Alcatel is not there, Siemens is not there, Marconi is not there. Who are the other big companies at that stage? These were the iconic companies, Japanese companies, Fujitsu, Hitachi, your NEC. These are all big telecom guys.
Telecom, हाँ.
ये सारी कंपनियां टेलीकॉम इनकी बंद हो गई क्योंकि ओवर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. सो व्हेन नॉटेल वेंट बैंकरप्ट तो हमारा 40% वो बिजनेस भी खत्म हो गया. सो दैट वाज हिट नंबर 2 फॉर अस. देन 2010-11 व्हाइल वी आर रिकवरिंग फ्रॉम ऑल.
और इस वक्त आपको समझ में आ रहा है कि चाइना एक गेम खेल रहा है, चाइना इज सपोर्टिंग.
2008 में चाइना गेम शुरू हो गया था क्योंकि इंडिया में 2006 तक चाइनीज अलाउड नहीं थे. 2007 से चाइनीज आके इंडिया में आ गए और हर टेंडर में हम 100 पे करते, वो 50 पे करते, हम 50 करते, वो 25 पे करते. We started losing business. So we filed an anti-dumping case against Huawei in 2008. That's how I got into a lot of business. And we won that case. So it was the first high-tech anti-dumping case which we won. Anyway, so coming back to this, so Nortel hit happened. Then 2009-10 or 2010-11, we had the famous 2G scam in India.
Yes.
So as a result, all operators froze their capex for next 3 years. क्योंकि किसी के पास स्पेक्ट्रम ही नहीं था. तो हमारा इंटरनेशनल बिजनेस खत्म हो गया.
और इंडिया
का बिजनेस कोई खरीद ही नहीं रहा, तो आप बेचोगे क्या? एंड हमारे पैसे भी हम आईपीओ के जाने के थे, तो बट वो जो 25 मिलियन थे उसने हमें बचा दिया. तो वो 3-4 साल हम टिके रहे.
और तब क्या कर रहे थे?
तब तक हमारे रेवेन्यूज व्हिच हैड गॉन अप फ्रॉम 250 to 400, देन वेंट टू 400 बिफोर आईपीओ, एंड देन वी वर एट 600 आल्सो एट सम स्टेज जस्ट बिफोर द आईपीओ ईयर. देन वो फिर 400 हो गया, फिर 200 हो गया, एंड वी आर लिटरली फाइटिंग फॉर सर्वाइवल. बट सो दिस इज वेयर थिंग्स हैपन. बट देन दैट्स व्हाट आई वाज टेलिंग यू. देन थिंग्स we said कि okay, how bad can that be? So we had IPO delay हो गया, पैसे लकीली थे बट कम हो रहे हैं, Nortel चला गया,
40% बिजनेस चला गया.
Tally चला गया, then India का खत्म हो गया. Now, if that was not enough, then we had another issue. We used to have our factory in Pondicherry because that time उस समय excise वगैरह का रहता था, and Pondicherry was an excise free zone. And so we used to do, most companies used to do manufacturing in Pondicherry. But in around 2011 or 12, I don't remember the exact year, there was this big tsunami. So when tsunami came, entire ECR, the East Coast Road on Pondicherry, Chennai, where all these factories were located, were under 20 feet of water. So our factory went underwater. Okay. So all our inventory that was also sunk in water for whatever time. So inventory ka we got a hit. So that was pretty bad, in a sense.
अब वो फैक्ट्री आपको कितना % कंट्रीब्यूट करती?
That is our only factory. We don't have any other factory. So all your inventories.
और यहाँ पर आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का तब कर रहे थे?
Contract manufacture करके जो finished goods आता था वो हमारी factory में आते थे.
और उसमें क्या करते थे आप फिर?
Final assembly and test, which is basically cards आए and then we put it into the box. So whatever we could do, जब पानी शुरू हो गया, so factory थी तो जितना सामान ऊपर करके move कर सकते थे तो गए. But I mean, at least the ground floor of the factory was all somewhere. There was a lot of stuff we lost there, but something we were able to salvage. But this was another shocker. So with all of this stuff, we were saying, okay, we have, too many. And then there was this survival thing. Do we even have cash? Because once you don't have cash, your projects get stuck, your working capital gets stuck, and you don't have money. You need another 10 crores to put into something to complete your inventory. And if till you don't do that, aapka payment atak jata. So we're getting into this cash flow jam. And then we said, okay, let's tighten up our operation. So we were in 2-3 places because we had expanded by then in JP Nagar. There were 2 or 3 buildings. We said, you know what, let's consolidate that and go towards Electronic City, which is slightly lower cost. So we moved all of that into a new, office. It is a 6th-floor building in Kudlu Gate, which is nearby of the thing. And we moved there. And within 2 months of moving there, so we were on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor. First and second floor, there was a company which was doing some electronics repair ka kuch kaam hum karte the. So for whatever it's worth, they had a fire in that building. So as a result of the fire from the second floor, the entire building got enclosed and our building got burnt. So our labs got burnt. So we basically had a major fire in 2013-14 where, our lab infrastructure, our office was all burnt. Jo bhi burnt means and fire tenders aaye 4-5 ghante jitna bacha sakte bata. So we went through this also. So this was, I'm saying, you talk about things going bad. One by one, things went bad. And then,
और अभी आपका revenue क्या चल रहा है?
Then we are down to 200 crores at this stage because we were still not recovered from all the other.
और आप अभी क्या बेच रहे हैं?
Same. So we continue to build the same. So optical networking products, we do continue to build more and more products, but business has come to a standstill because of all of these things. But anyway, so that was kind of the absolute low point in the company because what else can go wrong? And you're almost then running out of money. We are 5-10 crores or 15 crores left in the bank. And then, what do we do, right? So, but anyway, so from there, those days, so then we immediately found within a week a new place in Electronic City, which is the current office. We took a call, we'll take a nice big office and now we'll make it happen. So we took a nice place, brand new building, moved there. We took the full building, no dependence on anybody else. Did up the details, then the people moved, got the labs up, got everything going. And that year was a very interesting year where I think around that time...
Which year is this?
This is 2013, 14 or 12, 13, somewhere in that time. Those time we really still continue to focus on R&D. We used to invest 30, 40, 50% of our revenues in R&D. Right?
That's why you have more than around 400 IPs.
IPs, yeah. So हमने R&D में कभी product development में कभी कमी नहीं की. तो उस साल जब हमारे 200 crore revenue थे, तब भी हमने full blast R&D में investment किए. Maybe we invested 100 crores in R&D at that stage on a P&L basis. And we recharged the product platform because you have to continue to do this. And we did that. And then with the new product platform, new everything, we rebuilt the business. So then from 200, then we again went to 300, then we went to 400, then went to 600. And around that time, we just did a small round of, I think, about $5 million from internal investors, which, just put in money. And then that was the oil that degreased the system. And things came back on track. And then 2017, with everything back again on up and slowly, we did an IPO. So a successful IPO, we raised some 700 crores, 400 primary, some 500, I would say 300 secondary. And then from there, we continued to do well and all that. And now, I think as of yesterday, the company is around 19,000-20,000 crore market cap. And the total money we raised was about $150 million. So, from a investor perspective or, employee perspective, I think everybody did quite well. But this went through the journey. So it was like and all along, we never wavered on building products. We never wavered on technology. We continue to invest. We continue to believe. team stayed together. Very difficult today that the four founders, me, Desh, Kumar, Arnab, even till I retired last year, same team. So the team stayed together. If I were to take Tejas as employee number 5,000, I don't know what, but from the first 200 employees that had an employee number, as of last year when I left, we still had about 80 people who had less than 200, which means there are 80 people from the original 200 who stayed on after 22, 23 years in R&D technology. Despite all of this, we never ever had a discord at the board. We never had a investor issue. We never had anybody, causing grief with anybody else. Employees left at different points in time for a variety of reasons, but many employees rejoined. So we had people, we used to have a joke, it's a second innings for you, it's a third innings for you. People came back. And so I think we built a really good culture of, people. There was a very strong mission to build a deep tech product company from India, and we did that. So I think all that went very well. And but after IPO, again, we figured that how do we take the company to global size? And then we found out that two fundamental issues are coming in the way, that the brand of India as a tech product nation
is not established.
And it takes a lot to sell against established player without that brand, right? As a country level brand.
Even after so
many years. So we still do international business in many countries. We're selling 77, but not into the top league. And second thing in our industry, because telecom is the infrastructure industry, you need a lot of balance sheet. If you have to win $1 billion deal, you can't be a $100 million company because people want to see, will you be around for next year? So we were handicapped on these two accounts, not a strong balance sheet and not a global brand. And then in 2000, and so far we are only doing products till 2019, which are wireline products, which is optical networking, switches, routers, and all that. While we could build wireless products, which is 4G, 5G base station, we never ventured because humne bana diya, so how can I win against Nokia or Huawei? That was always the question. So in 2019, there was a opportunity which came out of the blue. No, it was because there was a border skirmish between India and China and the Galwan Valley. And India really decided that we have to become Atmanirbhar in telecom, because if the networks cannot be trusted and if you will build networks on Chinese equipment, what do you trust, right? So basis which they tried to figure out that who in the country can potentially build this stuff, and needless to say, we were...
This is China ne Huawei ko pakda tha, Indian government ne aapko pakda.
So we worked together and said, yes, in an 18-month period, we will build you the world's best base station for 4G and 5G. Yeah, they were asking and we said, we'll build it provided we get an opportunity to win business, because so we can invest. But so we said, okay, if you build the product, we will give you an opportunity, a fair opportunity. So BSNL was planning to buy 100,000 base stations of 4G.
That's the 7,000 crore.
9,000 crore order, which is the world's largest single deployment of 4G base station in one shot. And we said, we'll build it. And we took 18 months. We built the products. They tested it for 1 year. Compared it with Nokia, Huawei on the same towers, 40 stations in the same city, like to like. We matched the performance and we now beat that performance because ours is an integrated product where you can do optical, base station, GPON in the same box because of the software-defined hardware architecture, which nobody in the world does. So they can save money, they can get a lot of services. So, and suddenly because we got this customer, we built it and suddenly we got into the different league. And along the way, then we started working with Tatas because to deploy this network in 100,000 places in the country, while we can build the equipment and supply, to install, commission, testing, integration. So we are not a system integrator. So TCS, we started to partner, and then they became the system integrator for the BSNL project. And that's how we started to know Tatas. And then Tatas felt that, well, long-term, India needs a Indian telecom company like what China has or US has. And we were a very good candidate. And then for whatever it's worth, it made sense that we had Tata Sons invest into Tejas, and now they are 55% shareholders. So we are a Tata company now. Tata, we worked together and made that deal happen because it solved our two fundamental problems.
The
globalization, the global brand. So the best brand that India has outside of India, unquestionably is Tata, because they're such a old and reputed brand.
And the balance sheet.
Second thing is the balance sheet. Tata Sons is
huge pockets, deep pockets.
So once we got both these things done, he said, well, as an entrepreneur, the thing, and as a founder, two things which are very important when you start a company. It's your baby in a sense, right? So I was very clear that, at some stage, I have to move on in life and do other things. And I've done this for 23, 24 years. It's a very intense job and having solved the toughest problem in the toughest industry, doing everything for the first time was very difficult. So at some stage I decided that I would like to step down. But then how do I step down without knowing that
Who will take control?
Who will take control and that things are in good hand? So when and the thing was in the works. So when the Tatas came in, I know this company will run for the next 100 years. And I think with the kind of DNA we had, the management and professionalism we had, and they had it matched completely. And then, then I made sure that we win the BSNL deal. We got all the supply chain going. So for the next 2 years, the revenues are also all there and scaled up. So I think we just closed the March quarter with some 2,200 crores of revenues. There's a backlog of 9,000 crores, which will get executed this year. So I think companies again in that mode. But there's all that business is there, and there's enough runway for new people, and that's when I chose to step down, feeling very satisfied that I've done my job for the company to the best, that got it up, made sure it got a good home, made sure it got good momentum. And now I can, retire comfortably and focus on bigger things. So this is how the whole thing played out. And I think it's a story about a lot of resilience. It takes a long time to build all this stuff. Our team sticking together, and the mission was, absolutely, clear. And we never wavered कि products से services बन जाते हैं, थोड़ा सा products, थोड़ा सा services कर देते हैं. We said product is product. We don't do anything else. Global company, competing with the best, making sure that, we do it out of India. We didn't flip from India to a US company, ये वो करके, none of that stuff. We never, took any technology from foreign कि वो कुछ shortcut लेके TOT कर लो. So we took it the hard way, and I'm very satisfied and happy that we did this. Because I think we have truly created an institution. It's very hard to do something of the nature we have done. And now, as a part of some of the other activities, I'm seeing that whatever learnings I've got from Tejas in taking a company which is a deep tech product manufacturing company, all the elements of successes from R&D to hardware to software to semiconductors to supply chain to sales, marketing, branding, financing, country support, policies, all of this, if we can use and do it across 5-10 more sectors, that is what will build products out of India, because we have been in a sense pioneers to do all of this stuff, and not too many success stories of this kind. So that learning, if it can be helping democratized, and other sectors can learn, because the recipe is very similar, that could be something very useful for the countries.
जब टाटा जैसा ब्रांड आता है, it solved your balance sheet problem, it solved the brand problem. But when Tata is, on the table, what are some changes that the institution bring? How was the experience then?
So I think, first of all, ethics and governance of Tata's is of course great. And to be fair, they just had equivalent code of conduct and ethics. So I think that part we were very good. I think that the thing Tata brings in is a very large scale global thinking. The success of TCS, for example, which is a very globalized company. One of the persons who came in on our board from Tata side is N.G. Subramanian, who's the chief operating officer of TCS. Also, he really literally would have been having the ringside view of growing TCS from where it was initially too big. So I think the whole big thinking thing, that at some stage you have to invest more to get more. The BSNL deal, for a small company to say that from 1,000 crore revenue, I'll do 8,000 crore revenue is not a joke, right? So to be able to say that, with processes, systems, and you have to do that. So I think a lot of that learning came in. On the flip side, I think there's a lot of knowledge of technology, product building that Tejas brings, which I'm sure is useful to the Tata Group as they're doing stuff in semiconductors or other parts of Tata Electronics and so on. Because this knowledge, services is a different DNA. Product is a different DNA. So there's a lot of knowledge about trade-offs. How do you decide what products features should have? How do you decide what price points you have? How do you make products which are manufacturable? See, product design is one thing. Product manufacturable in high volumes is another.
कि आपने design कर लिया, इसको high
volume. This is all called DFX. Design for manufacturing, design for test, design for cost, design for upgradability, design for future proofing.
So it has to be.
So it's not just so when people sometimes say, "Oh, I made a product and they design kar diya, abhi to apne aap bikhega." That's only one element of it. Then how to make it scalable? How you can you manufacture this product repeatably in 1 million units, and can you test it?
Different set of problem.
It's a different. So producing 1 to 100 is different. 100 to 1,000 is different. 1,000 to 10,000 different. आपका product lab में चल रहा है. परफेक्ट, आप फील्ड में ले जाएंगे, कंडीशंस कंप्लीटली बदल जाती हैं.
गर्मी होती है, ये होता है.
Exactly. The way these are all real time systems, the way the interrupts come, power failure होता है तो क्या करना चाहिए, interference होती है. So there's a lot of real life learning that happens. So I think the native knowledge that Tejas has of building what is called ruggedized 99.99999% reliable electronics, which has stood the test of time for 23 years in 75 countries with more than 1 million units, is insanely valuable experience which nobody in the country has. So this expertise of knowledge is outstanding asset for the country. And I wish, for example, if we had got the same level that Huawei got in China, we would have been probably $100 billion company. Who knows? That's what Huawei is. Our countries, we would have then kickstarted the semiconductor ecosystem, the ancillary industries, वगैरह, because that's how it happens. The systems company comes, then they set up the component industry, क्योंकि उनको चाहिए chips बनाएंगे, then they set up the EMSs, right? So India took the other reverse. We started with the EMS, now she will do components, now we want to do our own chips, right? Which is fine. That's how India happened. But I think now we need to start all the three in parallel. So we have to build our own products, we have to do our manufacturing, we have to do our fabs, etc. And all of this has to happen now because we've already lost a lot of time. World is moving very fast. China is not stopping. US government has put $60 billion into what is called CHIPS Act, which they are giving $60 billion for incentives to produce chips in the US. China में तो करीब 125-200 billion dollars दे चुके. India, we are just starting.
Yes, right.
We have to make products from India in different domains. We are importing so much. So if you see the trade deficit, although we are manufacturing a lot in electronics, but the imports have correspondingly gone up. So अगर आप $100 की manufacturing कर रहे हैं, पर $95 के तो आपके components import हो रहे हैं, तो आप तो 5 के value addition कर रहे हैं. Whereas in the product, value addition is like 50%. So because the design is here, the systems are here. So I think we have to do that as well. So that's more like the infrastructure. So the EMS infrastructure is now in place. But now we got to focus on products. We got to focus on IPR. That's really where our sweet spot is. Fabless semiconductors, for example. That's what India should be doing soon because like what we did, Tejas had 400 fabless chips. Because हमने जितनी भी IPR जो FPGAs बनाते, we could have converted into a chip. So the expertise of developing that is available. So that is what we need to now leverage again, right? So
Tata ने आपकी जो 2 problem solve करी, we understand. But also tell us the second aspect, how hard is it to decide that the thing that you have grown and, sharing the controlling stake with, Tata brand with anybody? What was your mindset?
The thing is, one has to be realistic about entrepreneurs, what is in your control and what is not in your control. So once we tried hard to see that we'll build up our own international sales, we'll invest, IPO की बात तो enough पैसे आ जाएंगे, but $100 million is nothing. You're competing with companies like Nokia, Cisco, who are $40-50 billion in size, Huawei $70-80 billion size. $100 million क्या कर लेगा आपका? So we realized that it is not a question that by putting more efforts, technology we solved as much as we could, but then we hit a limit with how much. So if you have to get scale, economics, we need to be a $1 billion company. And if you are not a $1 billion company, you can't get to scale. And it's not a question of कि हम कैसे international में deal करेंगे. Those fundamental issues are coming. So once we kind of got a sense, it's difficult to do it on our own. And then we needed the home market to fire for us. So this India $1 billion BSNL deal was absolutely necessary for Tejas to go to the next territory. That got enabled because of us, government and Tata all being involved. Because Tata से comfort आ गया government को कि भाई हम
भरोसा
कर सकते हैं. तो उस तरीके से benefit हुआ. So I think it benefited the country. कि उनने एक leap of faith. So I think there's 2 areas in which this leap of faith has worked for the country. One is in the telecom sector where they took a leap of faith and we built the equipment and now we can sell it to the world. And our Prime Minister is talking, our Telecom Minister is talking about it, that India is now 4G, 5G stack, we'll sell it to the world. Second one is Vande Bharat, if you see. Version 1 of Vande Bharat trains which came, initially was not perfect. But they decided that we will build these world-class trains out of India because it's not a rocket science, we can do it. But the Rev 2, and they did this, and maybe Vande Bharat Rev 1 में थोड़े से issues आएंगे, but they very quickly fixed that. Having confidence कि if Indian engineer दुनिया के लिए बना सकते हैं तो अपने लिए क्यों नहीं बना सकते हैं? तेजस अगर आप नोकिया और एरिक्सन सिस्को के R&D सेंटर बैंगलोर में सबके so we had to have confidence in our own capabilities which we now have as a country. So I think the experience of Tejas in telecom, Vande Bharat in railways have given key if we use our home market to get our own companies economies of scale, that is the recipe to go global. But if we cannot sell your products in India, if I go to sell a large deal in US, the eligibility condition says you should have at least sold 10,000 base stations. अगर मैं इंडिया में बेच नहीं पाऊंगा तो मैं वहाँ कहाँ से जाऊँगा? So that is what gets solved by the Indian. So we have to leverage a large home market to provide a platform for capable Indian product companies to win, support them, get them scale, then they'll go global on their own. But if you don't provide that initial charge, it will not happen because these stacks are against you. The nature of the beast in product industry is economies of scale. You're always behind the established guys. If it's a brand new product category which didn't exist, you develop a new medtech device, इतनी बड़ी X-ray machine के बदले आप मोबाइल फोन से काम कर देते हो, it's a different play. But 99% of the products in the world are in the established category. China figured that out. कि established product में अगर जाना है, government support करो, price गिराओ, economies build करो China के market में, go global, finance करो, then you have enough innovation money to kill everybody else, which is what they've done. So I think we have to do this in India in the product play. इसके बिना नहीं होगा काम.
जनरली कंपनीज की वैल्यूएशन होती है उतना सिर्फ एक आपका 900 मिलियन 7,500 करोड़. आर देयर व्हाट वर सम स्टोरीज बिहाइंड गेटिंग दैट डील? और मेरे हिसाब से मतलब विद लिमिटेड अंडरस्टैंडिंग किसी कोई और भी जना नहीं होगा जिसने वो
नहीं था.
ओनली वन.
So everybody got an opportunity, but nobody. So I jokingly say, there were 4 horses who, I won't name those companies other than Tejas and TCS. They're all big companies out of India in the tech sector.
इंडिया में
हाँ, उनको मौका दिया कि आप भी बना दो. But उन्होंने हाँ हम करेंगे, but of course it's not easy to build. So we built it. So that was one. Second thing is actually while we had not done wireless, but 70-80% of BSNL's wireline network, which is optical transport network, runs on Tejas. And they have phenomenal goodwill. They have outstanding reports of Tejas equipment in their network. In fact, you go to any tower or any exchange of BSNL in India, anywhere, और रेलवेज के आप में चले जाओ, पावर ग्रिड के किसी भी एक्सचेंज में चले जाओ, आपको तेजस का इक्विपमेंट दिखेगा. So BSNL had the confidence that Tejas technology works. So they just said that we have not done it in wireless, which you proved it in their network, and now it works.
फिर भी आजकल लोग है ना वो BSNL को क्यों गालियां देते हैं कि उनका नेटवर्क क्यों नहीं चलता? वो चैलेंज कहाँ पर आ जाता है?
That was see, they didn't have 4G equipment at all. So if you don't invest in your capex, the problem is you're going to get 2G. 2G से क्या आप कर लोगे? Everybody wants a smartphone today. So with this, I think BSNL network's performance will be as good, if not better, than anybody else's. Or with the installments that they are doing now, they only deployed some 10,000 sites.
Out of 1 lakh.
1 lakh. I think by the end of this calendar year, they'll deploy the whole thing. End of this year, their network will be probably superior to anybody else.
So you are the reason जिसकी वजह से अब गालियां कम पड़ेगी BSNL को.
100%. And it'll do very well. Trust me. Because the guys who are, but still BSNL holds about 1 crore subscribers. Because जहाँ उनका चलता है 2G, it runs like a charm. Because they have the best support team, best field team. Fiber, they have the best fiber, They have 70% of their cell sites are on fiber, whereas any other operator is no more than 50%. So they'll have better experience eventually, yeah.
So also tell me, 400, more than 350 plus patents. How can someone build that DNA of research and development? वो कैसे होता है? How was it possible for you? Was it possible because of the success in commercial markets and you were able to deploy whatever the money you had back into the system, or was it because in this industry it is very, very important to be?
No. So I think, we, as I told you earlier, we are in the technology play.
Yes.
So in technology industry, unless you invest in R&D and technology, there is no way you can succeed, right? So we were always investing on a fully expense basis. On an average, if I were to take last 10-15 years, around 25% of our revenues in R&D, 25%. Whereas in India, most listed companies do 2%, right?
Yes.
तो 25% था, उसको अगर आप capital expense वो करके 11-12% कभी-कभी दिखता है, but actual number is much higher. And the patents are only one mechanism of establishing your credibility of R&D, but more importantly, patents तो कुछ कमी फाइल की, but more importantly, the way we develop the product, the know-how of how to do hardware, software. We have like 10 million lines of code which runs on our product side. That quality of code with 5.9 performance, to be able to do those 400 silicon IPs, which are literally chips, So a lot of that stuff required technology, and we had to do this because without which, how do we compete against the guys who are 100 times bigger than you?
True.
That is the way it was, right? So,
फ्यूचर के बारे में बताइए सर. When do you also tell us about that Reliance thing? जैसे जब Reliance Jio आ रहा था, what were certain things that you provided him? What was the backstory जो आपको पता थी?
yeah, so that's it. I mean, when they started to build this transmission boxes, I think they bought from us in the initial stages for the backhaul. So that was there. Of course, they continue to buy a lot of from the international players as well. But what the point I was trying to make is that our credibility got established. This is a company which makes best-in-class products in the world. And hence we can, if there is a product that Tejas has which fits into their network, we generally had a good shot at selling it to them. Of course, subject to price being competitive, right? So that's how it was.
और सर ऐसे आज बोलते हैं कि जियो रिवॉल्यूशनलाइज द कंट्री, राइट? जियो इंटरनेट आने की वजह से इतनी सारी चीज़ें चेंज हुई है दैट इफ यू लर्न दैट इट्स अमेजिंग. डिड यू हैड सम अंडरस्टैंडिंग जब आपको पता चल रहा था कि एक नया नेटवर्क आ रहा है कि अब जियो जो प्ले करेगा? डिड यू हैड सम इनसाइट कि यार ऐसा होगा?
No, in fact, not just Jio alone. I think the way we look at it is कि the whole industry कहाँ evolve होगी. So we have to, in a product business, you have to forecast technology. You have to assume what 3-4, because your product development takes 1-2 years. Then it will get to scale and the life is 10 years. So you have to forecast what next 3, 5, 7 years will look like.
And if you are able to, if you wrongly forecast, जैसे वो CDMA और उसकी वजह से आता है, you will die.
So we always had to do that. So that's why we have to talk to a lot of customers in India, around the world. So now you can understand when I said Nortel से हमें global requirement मिलती थी. After that, we of course established our own customer base internationally. We have, in many countries, we have direct customers. So we have a very good understanding of the standards and, all the stuff that is happening around the world. And be able to kind of do a technology forecast कि क्या बनाना चाहिए. And that is what you invest into technology. And then the beauty from our point of view was, what made it easier is that because our platform was software defined, we could course correct if some things didn't exactly work the way we wanted. So
क्या उन प्लेटफॉर्म पे can you also move to 5G and 6G?
Yeah. So those 4G equipment we are supplying to BSG is 5G upgradable. That is our DNA always.
Is it also 6G?
No, 6G is too much out. So 6G is another 20-30 times standard ही नहीं बने हैं. So of course you cannot. So you can only do for what is standardized. You cannot do for stuff which is. So 6G will be a different platform. But
help us understand. जब 6G टेक्नोलॉजी आ जाएगी, जब जब हम थोड़े से और बड़े हो जाएंगे, क्या होगा 6G टेक्नोलॉजी में?
So first of all, the simplest thing is what is called the speeds keep increasing. So you got, you may get a terabit on your phone, for example, but that you don't really need really. But it will be more ubiquitous coverage, indoor, outdoor, remote areas, all that will be there in 6G. Latency will be much lower in the sense that if you're driving a car, I mean, the response time from the server to your network will be much lower. Then there'll be a concept of digital twins, in the sense you can. So there's a lot of standard of 6G still evolving. So it will be a network of sensors, for example. There'll be sensors of all kind, and they will say कि ये building ऐसी है, तो उसके हिसाब से आपकी, waves have to do this. Satellite and fiber will have to, work more closely together. So there's a lot of stuff which is going to come in. But from a user level, it will be more ubiquitous communication network, higher speed, lower latency, and so on and so forth. Right? Those will be the things.
जैसे आपने बताया कि in this game, you have to have a forecast of technology, sir. And this is something that we ask everyone in their field because they are the top 1%. And we believe you can't predict future, but you do have some sense, some nerve check about future. How do you envisage future? If you have to predict certain things about future, and that can be related to country, that can be related to the telecom industry, that can be related to the world that we are going to live, that can be related to technology. Have you thought deeply कि जिस दुनिया में हम जाएंगे, and hopefully you will live 100 plus years, how is that world going to look like? And then, can young folks work backward? जैसे reverse engineer करते हैं?
Absolutely. No, very good question. So first of all, let's start off from the top that you just said. So one thing which is going to change is that the longevity, the age of people in the world is going to increase significantly, right? Because of the medicine, because of everything else, and so on and so forth. So societies today are programmed for people of a certain age. But if suddenly, why you're finding a lot of new diseases which are called, which were not there before, it's not that these diseases like degenerative diseases or age-related diseases, because people never live to that age, or very few people live. Now, a lot more people are living to that age, hence those diseases are becoming a widespread disease. So you start with health, so there will be a lot of population which will be lot more longevity. What that means is then the technology has to come and work backwards. So the healthcare has to improve. Communication has to improve. So for example, one of the use cases of 5G and 6G is it can within a 30 centimeter area, even inside your house, it can pinpoint where a person is. And this was discovered because in Japan or in US, there are a lot of elderly people living by themselves. One of the reasons for injuries and death is someone falls
And you don't know.
and nobody responds to them. But if they fall, the sensors in your body or the phone within 30 centimeter outside building है but inside building वो network नहीं चलता. वो precise कर लेगा कि इस bathroom के left side में आप है, and then the first responder can directly come, attend to you, do something about it, take a wire to them. I'm just giving an example.
This can happen with 5 or 6G.
This can happen with 5G. This is 5, and so I'm just giving you, so people are going to live longer, number one. So the technology will become a lot more. So healthcare has to make a lot more advancement. We have to solve a lot of. So for example, if you see antibiotics solve the first level of problems where, things happen, Then the second level of, vaccines and the other things solve the second level of problem. Now there's a third level of stuff for lifestyle and age-related stuff which has to be solved, which will be a combination of med tech, health tech, eat better eating, all of that and all the stuff. So that will be the foundation, because this problem is already happening in Japan, Korea and Taiwan, which are becoming aging societies. Average age बढ़ रही है उनकी, new people are coming in, so less. So they have to solve technology to plug that gap. That will lead to all kind of things. So your AI is going to play a big role in terms of making everything more efficient and predicting and all that. Communication is going to be much more pervasive, much more faster, much more deeper. Electronics will be in everything, wearables, sensors, there's IoT, there all kind of things will be there. Defense wars will be fought in a different way, not in the traditional way with the drones and with electronic warfare, jamming, satellites, so all of that will come. So food has to, you have to grow enough food for a larger population, storage. So it's a connected energy, by the way, is a very big area. If India has to become a developed economy by 2047, if you take the energy consumption that India needs, traditional sources will not work. Even solar will not work, wind will not work. Nuclear is the only way you'll be able to plug. At least nuclear has to get to 10% of that, of the total, because the energy will be so much. So what I'm trying to say is, development. So geopolitics is going to be very different. I think the way China is going to come up is very clear. India will have two trajectories. It can possibly be there in 50 years from today, 25 years from today. Either we continue to be a low-end manufacturing economy, which is what we are currently doing, and we'll be in a $18,000-$20,000 GDP, which is 2-3x of that, but we'll be in this middle income trap, which is what Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, all these countries are stuck in that. They were all manufacturing powerhouses, but they never got out of that. Or we become like US or China, which use the knowledge economy, and from this $18,000-$20,000, you go to $40,000, $50,000, $70,000, $80,000. We've got to get into that game if you have to be a developed country for two reasons. A, the 7-8% growth linear, if you say for 25 years and will be this so much economy, never works, because there will be headwinds, something will go wrong. So you have to have non-linear things working, which is basically the product game, the technology ownership, IPR ownership in different sectors. Because once you become a knowledge power, only then you have the economic wealth that you control to be able to sustain the rest of the population. So I think India becoming a knowledge economy with more depth of manufacturing, higher validation, creating our own products, own IPR in different technology areas is the imperative thing. And I'm not just talking deep tech. It could be food tech. It could be energy. It could be whatever, right? I mean, we've got to move from a consumer economy to a creator economy. We may become the largest user of airline planes in the world, but a lot of the money goes to the planes.
Yes.
We are largest telecom thing, but हमने $100-200 billion का equipment खरीद लिया. फायदा तो जबकि चाइना ने वो $200 billion का equipment चाइना में खरीदवाया.
Right.
आप समझे ना? तो वो डिफरेंस हमें अब लाना पड़ेगा. हमारे पास नॉलेज भी है, हमारे पास मार्केट साइज भी है, हमारे पास टैलेंट भी है, हमारे पास फंड्स भी हैं, हमारे पास गवर्नमेंट भी प्रोएक्टिव है. So this has to work now.
तो इस ट्रैजेक्टरी को छोड़ के इस ट्रैजेक्टरी पे आने के लिए गवर्नमेंट
has to play serious role.
और वो कैसे होगा?
So that is where I think, first of all, the current set of people understand a lot of the things. And I think as, people from the industry like myself and many others, we are, sharing our ideas with the right people in the government. And people understand this has to be done. And I think it's not that difficult to understand what has to be done.
We should be optimistic that
Yeah, 100%. It has to happen. And I feel that that is what will create the new wave of technology companies, jobs. And, to me, I would say 50 years from today, India should be in the advanced economy, not in the middle income trap, right? I mean, not that $20,000 per annum per capita. We have to be into the $70,000 per annum, which is the US, Europe, and China hopefully will be there even sooner, right?
We count on you guys in order to, so that you can put the right things in the set of government and government can do this. Because it'll take
5, 10, 20 years to make it happen, but the start has to happen now. We are already late, can't be late anymore,
So many questions to ask, but we'll go to rapid fire round. आपको जल्दी से एक लाइन का जवाब देना है. There are few questions. What's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now, sir?
Right now?
Yes.
No, I'm not facing any challenge. I'm enjoying life. So post-retirement, that's one fun thing I've had. So no challenge really.
Of course, Tejas is a listed company. And but which is your favorite listed company in any other space, sir?
To be honest, I don't have that name. If I just were to look at how companies have performed over a period of time, Apple has done phenomenally well over different stages. So it's a good blueprint for a successful company over periods of time. Back home in India, I would say I'm assuming and I'm confident that companies like Infosys and TCS will figure out a way to crack past their the AI and all of that and find a new way to grow. But if you see how these companies have built their businesses from very modest background to now 30, 40, $50 billion and build a sustainable business, these are all remarkable things. I think the way Reliance Industry executes on large projects are again very, very interesting ways to do. Way Tatas think in terms of long term of business. They don't think 2 years. They think 10 years, 20 years is phenomenal. So I think there's a lot of learning from different kind of businesses over.
Tell us about some product company that you think from India will build for the world and which will be so big like Tejas, because Tejas was once a startup.
I think Tejas has that potential to begin with, and I'm hoping there will be more.
Any new generation product startups that you see?
I think that's still at the early stages, so it's difficult to call. But I think to me, it's a question of it is going to happen. It'll happen across multiple sectors. It'll take time. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years. But between 5 to 10 years, I think we should start seeing good large-scale companies coming out of India. Yeah.
What's the best advice that you have received? जैसे आपने बताया था ना 3-4 साल बहुत वो हुए थे, तो उस समय in your journey of building for 2 decades, which was the best advice that you received and from who?
Yeah, I would say is that, I worked very closely with Desh Deshpande, who was our co-founder, and 2-3 things I learned from him in one particular thing is that, and part of it is really what I brought as a DNA to Tejas is we were, insanely optimistic. We'd always, we had this thing that if someone in the world can solve this problem, we'll solve that problem. So it's that confidence and belief that it is there. It may take a little bit more time, and maybe the first attempt may not be the best one, but we'll do that. So I think what that gives you as an entrepreneur is you never give up. Because everything will take more time than you think. Things will be harder than you think. There will be unplanned roadblocks which will come. But as the leader, one has to believe that I'll make it happen. We are on this mission. So like in Tejas, we were struggling for so many years. Then we went okay. Then again we came back, and then we went up again. And then suddenly we took off. So the whole thing is, patience is key, right? So for example, in 2019-20, if we had given up, we would have been 1,000 crore companies stuck in that range forever, right? 20%, 30% growth. But we were there when the opportunity came. And when the opportunity comes, to double down and just bring your muscle memory. If someone in the world can do it, I'll do it. So we got this wireless opportunity. We built it, scaled it up. Some hiccups will come, but we make it happen. And then suddenly you start seeing, disproportionate success, So
last question for the day. Because हम research कर रहे थे, तो research में news हम देखते हैं. Last महीने में Tejas Network का stock 77% ऊपर गया. What is that one thing that लोगों को पहले समझ में नहीं आ रही थी, और ये as a promoter and you are not, of course, not related, अभी आप management में नहीं है, but what's your understanding कि एक महीने में क्या हो गया कि 77 stock ऊपर चला गया?
Basically, so if you really see any long-term investor, first of all, every investor made money in Tejas. Every round of VC made, every employee made money. So I think it's always about long-term investing. So you really have to understand the company. So what we said is nothing new. Last year we had announced, before I had left, we had won the BSNL deal. We got this 9,000 crore of order book. It has to be executed in the next 18 months. You would take that revenue number, break it up by the quarter.
Of course.
It's not a rocket science. We said we are eligible for PLI scheme where we get 6% of the incremental revenues as PLI incentive. Someone can do the math कि 8,000 crore का 6% कितना होता है आपका. So all of that profit, and then we had also said that whatever was our steady EBITDA profit, we will get to it once, because initial थोड़ा investment phase है, आप इतना scale करो तो invest तो करना पड़ेगा. So we had said everything, and then the first quarter when it all came together was last quarter, which was just a matter of time. There's nothing, it had to happen. Suddenly, your revenue grow from 300 crores last year to 2,000 crores this year. Profit run from -50 to 150. It's almost obvious. So I think any long-term investor almost saw it. So there are a lot of long-term investors, I won't name them, but they made a killing on the Tejas stock. I mean, they came in at 30, 40, 50 rupees in 2000 COVID time. And they would have what, 50x of, would have 40x. So it's a stock market I don't understand, to be honest.
But is there anything that the retail investors doesn't understand about the Tejas network?
I think
this is very important.
Yeah. So the only thing is product companies, is not a Q1Q business. There's a lot of upfront investment happens. For once you build the product, the more you sell, the more you money. The gross profit straight away is close to your bottom line. There's nothing else. It's employee cost. So I think that part people don't understand well. So people are still Q1Q, tech company है तो वो services company, the हर चीज़ Q1Q होना चाहिए. Whereas product companies are basically non-linear. So that's one aspect. Technology is different. So people, so it's more companies will come. People will understand better. The smarter investors probably do.
इतना hike के बाद भी someone, do you think at this growth we should all still invest in the stock?
I have no recommendation on stocks. If I knew everything, I would not even work. I'll just invest in the stock market. But I don't understand that part. But I think, as I said, there's a great opportunity for Tejas and for India in general. And the question is when, and it'll also happen. That's also given. I hope it happens sooner than later. And more products have to be created. India has to get into the trajectory of IPR technology and all that to create economic impact. No, not only economic impact, there's another impact. Suppose tomorrow India wants to be a superpower and all of this is imported from some other country. They say, okay, we'll not supply you computers. We'll not supply you this grade of CPUs or GPUs. And they'll put export control on you. Or we'll not supply you defense. Or we'll not supply you planes. You have airlines, but we'll not supply you planes. What will you do?
Nothing.
You're stuck. China को अभी जो technology denial हो रहा है तो अगर आप भी stuck हो जाएंगे. So don't you want to learn a lesson that in critical areas, communication, defense, electronics, semiconductors, you better build a capacity because there is no choice.
और वो जब आगे लग जाएगी तब
वो हो नहीं है क्योंकि अगर आप किसी competitor बन जाएंगे 10 साल 20 साल बाद, he will not. Today you are his customer, tomorrow you are his competitor.
He wouldn't like you.
He'll not. Yes. So we better prepare for it now.
So true.
So
thanks a lot, sir. Really grateful. It was super inspirational for me, and I'm so glad that you gave us time.
Great. Now I'm very happy, and I hope
I learned a lot.
It's useful for
lot of
your
young
entire
folks.
audience and everybody else.
100%.